Question time, question time. Let's see what we got in question time. Here we go. Takes time to open up these things here. Here we go. You are late for a date. You spy an old acquaintance now who is down on his luck and drunk. Now, do you cross the street to avoid having a conversation? No, I don't. I can't do that. Nah, I like to help out a brother. I'm just that kind of person. Why not? I mean, would you?
Bros before hoes?
Oh, rated G. This is a rated G podcast. Yeah, this is mine. What do you do?
I think everybody's kind of down on their luck in the world today, and I run into drunk friends all the time. So
why do you gotta sound so depressing, man?
So what's the point? What's the point of avoiding your friend? That's your friend, right?
Word.
Just go chat.
That's right. I'm peace with that. It's good moving.
All right.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I would agree. You have to talk to your friend, even if it's inconvenient. You got to say something to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's your friend.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, here we go. When you pick up your car from the garage, you find that other repairs, not from the accident, were made and charged to your insurance. Do you tell your insurance company? Well, listen, first, let me say this. I hate the word insurance because I find it's the biggest racket that there is in the world, next to politics and some other things I don't like. But man, oh man, of course I'm going to tell the insurance company, and I'm going to make sure that those repairs are actually done. If they're on the invoice slip, and whether or not they've actually been done is a totally different story.
Yeah, people pay a little bit too much for insurance that they don't need, right? And we know what sells, right? Insurance, sex, and politics. Bam.
Those are the golden three. That's right. Like location, location.
That's
insurance, sex, and politics.
Be careful how you point those fingers up, because if you miss two of them, it's going to be another meaning. Like moving right along.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
I would not say it because I would want to avoid the trouble. It just seems like a trouble. Why bother causing trouble for the shop? Get paid more, etc. So, all right.
Here we go to drama.
Someone you don't like invites you to a really expensive restaurant you'd love to try. Do you go just for the meal? That's a good question. That's an interesting one. Depends on the restaurant. If it was a 3 Michelin star restaurant, I'd do it. I would do it just to practice my social patience. If it's just like Arby's or like Wong Steakhouse, no way.
Do you think some people go to these big time restaurants just to say, I've been there before, even if the food sucks?
Well, it never sucks at these places, right?
Well, it depends. Some of these people who are supposed to be nonchalant in their food tasting, I don't always have that kind of acquirement to that type of food.
I've been to a couple big fancy restaurants, more than a couple that are just terrible and so bloody expensive.
Yep. That's right. It's so true.
Well, listen, boys, I got one for you today because I said, hey, it's just an ordinary day, and it's all your state of mind. And at the end of the day, you just gotta say, it's John Groot, baby.
I absolutely didn't understand any of that.
I am Groot. That is correct. Yes. It's great to be here, guys. Thanks for the invite.
Well, listen, I got a fellow blue noser here, so I had to drop in a little bit of a ship shanty today because we come from the land of ice and snow where the pirates blow.
Yeah, and the polar bears play hockey.
What is a blue noser? I'm sorry. I'm from the other
It's
side.
not a brown noser.
Okay.
Blue nose is the famous ship, tall ship. Ship of the line, trading ship, tea ship from the 19th century.
What song is that in? It's in a song. Come on, the blue. It's got to be in.
I don't know actually, but it's a famous ship. If you come from Nova Scotia, you know the blue nose down in
Halifax and Lunenburg.
Lunenburg, yeah, that's right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the foreigner in this group. I'm from the other side of the border, and the place where people from my side of the border are running to be your neighbors.
Yes.
Like in Vietnam, moving right along.
Yeah. So here we are in Taiwan. We come from a little rock on the tip of Canada that nobody really cares about, and we crossed all the oceans to get here. So what brings you here, good sir?
Well, I've been here for about 19 years, and I came originally because I was interested in filling out my exploration of the world. And I'd lived in Africa, I'd been to India, the Middle East, South America, come from North America, and I thought to complete this kind of exploration of the world or take another big step, I would come to East Asia. It was just a place I'd never been to, influenced and dominated by Chinese history and culture, among other histories and cultures, and I was just curious. I just wanted to see the place. And once I came here, I fell in love with the girl and with the country.
Go back to the girl part. How did this story start?
Well, I met her through a friend of a friend that I'm still friends with. I met my wife, my current wife, I met her on my third day in Taiwan.
Wow, you're lucky.
Yeah. And I know some of the boys out there are not going to think this is a cool story, but she's the only woman I've been with since I came to Taiwan.
Wow.
19 years ago, yeah.
Oh, man, you're going to write a book on that too, right?
Well, maybe.
Okay. I'm trying to put the pressure on him, you get it?
That's right. You've got a book. Do you want to show us the cover of your book there real quick?
Yes, I do.
Show the folks at home.
Taiwanese Feet, My Walk Around Taiwan.
How cool.
All right. There it is. Yeah. All right.
How many pairs of shoes did you go through on this walk?
About 6, I think, yeah.
6?
Yeah.
And you had no sponsor? No sponsor?
Merrill shoes. They're the shoes you need if you want to walk around an island.
Got to get down to the socks later. Yeah, okay.
Cool. Well, I read your book cover to cover, and I got to say, it was a pretty fun read.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, you walked around Taiwan. You hit all the different shores, actually. I think you said something like 95 or 96% of all of the accessible shoreline within Taiwan, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Myself, I've been around quite a bit in Taiwan. I bicycled around the whole island.
Cool.
Except I did it much quicker and in a different way. We pushed through, and we got down to the south end of the island within 3 days.
That is very fast.
And so, yeah, from what I hear, that's a pretty big Herculean effort, but we actually didn't sleep. Now, I really wanted to ask you this, okay? Actually, 2 questions. First of all, man, I saw this creature when I was bicycling through the mountains. It stood as high as a dog and had Pikachu ears on it and just glowing eyes in the light. But our flashlights on our headlamps were quite dim. So did you see any, wicked, fictitious creatures that you want to talk about?
No, I didn't see any wicked, fictitious creatures. I did see rotting, I think it's called a Chinese, it's a dwarf sea porpoise, something like that. It's a cetacean. I saw a rotting cetacean. Mm-hmm. I saw some snakes. Mm-hmm. I saw nifty crabs. I saw... One day I saw a lot near Shuili, and I saw about 6 or 7 dead animals on the road. That was my roadkill day. It was great. Centipedes, millipedes, rats, and snakes. It was just like every 100 meters, oh my God.
So this wasn't a roadkill that you can just go by and pick up and eat like a possum or something like this,
I was tempted to, but there was people around. I was a bit embarrassed. Yeah.
What is this thing with dogs, man? You always end up in situations, with these dogs. Is this like a mark of you doing something wrong in your previous life with dogs? Or what's up with this?
Well, I'm doing something wrong from the dog's point of view.
Oh.
They don't think I should be there. It's unusual in Taiwan for Taiwanese people to walk around through farm areas and stuff that they don't live in. Uh-huh. Usually people, if they're traveling around, they'll travel on a motorcycle. Dogs usually give them a pass. If you walk near someone's farm, if you walk near someone's house, the dogs think it's an intrusion.
That's right.
And they'll come out and bark at
turf.
you and stuff. And so...
But you didn't get bit.
No, I've never been bitten by a dog in Taiwan.
Did you get any shots just in case, anything like that? Because I would.
No, I fought them off.
But you did have a close call, though, with that rock that almost turned you into road jam, as you put it, right?
Yes, there was one falling rock on the Suhua section of the trip, which was the most exciting section and scary section. And I was walking on an abandoned strip of ancient Suhua Road, the original Japanese road, which has since been largely abandoned. and a rock came from the cliff above, hundreds of meters above, and took out the entire top of a tree. And the tree just splintered and turned into basically chopsticks. And there was usually you see that in an explosion, like a detonation, right? Like, but it wasn't. It was just like a...
That's how you mentioned it in the book, like boom.
Yeah, but no boom, just a smashing sound. And then I heard the rock boom, dong, 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 booming down the side of the cliff as it fell.
Down the cliff.
Yeah, I didn't even see it. It was so fast. It's just a tree, the top half of a tree blows up, then you hear boom, 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 the rock going down. Yeah, it scared the bejesus out of me.
Talk about close calls, all right? When I did my little Route 69 down the highway, I ran into some people that were having close calls. Not myself, but some people that I actually ended up having to try to save, from like a little old lady that was teetering on the side of the cliff to a few other happenstances. But what I really wanted to ask was, in my travels, I cannot go without realizing and feeling and partaking sometimes in some real human and compassionate acts of human kindness and bravery and fervor. I'm sure that, spending even more time on the road than I did, that you must have run into something like that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, somebody that needed rescuing. No, I never actually ran across somebody in my trip that needed rescuing. The acts of compassion were always toward me.
Cool.
So generally speaking, it would be an extremely hot day, like the recent weather. I'd be in Taitung or Hualien or Pindong and walking and just really covered in sweat. And one day I was in Pindong and I was walking through a village and people were going like, oh, Adoha, ha, 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 oh, white glory. And it was really getting me annoyed because I find that sort of thing annoying. I mean, it's cute, but it's kind of annoying.
Wait, you don't get annoyed? Come on, you're such a cool guy.
I get annoyed.
You're getting annoyed, man.
It gets me annoyed, but I smile. I don't give them any guff back. I don't give them any static. But it's annoying. And then I was walking through this village in Pindong between somewhere between Hengchuan and Fangshan, and this little village by the sea. And this guy came by on a motorcycle. He just came up next to me, handed me a bottle of water, drove off, didn't say anything, just like, here you go, bud, zoom.
Here's this dumb foreigner walking, and it's hot, 39. I think it got up to 40 degrees today in some places. He doesn't understand what he's doing. This otoa to toka paikia, you just give it to you. Yes, that's happened to me too.
Just help a buddy, just here you go.
Help a brother out.
Yep.
So what about you, James? Have you been on your own little walkabout around the island?
I've taken the motorcycle around the island, and I ran from Taipei to Taoyuan and back, But I'm going to do one of these days. I'm going to run from here to Pingdong one day.
Wow.
It'll take me a couple of days.
That'd be amazing.
And about two pairs of shoes. I can do that.
That'd be cool.
You've been taking trips a lot. You've been taking in with some friends, like your friend Jerry.
One of my Jerry Lee from Nehu was one of the guys who came with me the most often on my trip.
Right.
As a companion, yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed in your book he shared some things about his past, right? And I just want to know, can you talk about during your trips, because you know a lot of Taiwanese people here, can you talk about some of the insights that you gained from actually getting into in-depth conversations, maybe not even in-depth, with the people from the local population? What kind of things did you get that, say, longtime foreign nationals or living here just would not be able to grasp? But in this situation, your walk probably helped you promote that kind of thinking that most foreigners just don't get.
Well, a lot of the foreigners that are here now wouldn't get. If you spoke with some of the guys, the military, State Department, CIA guys that were here in the 70s, they would understand a little bit better the tension that used to exist between mainlanders and the Taiwanese, the more recent immigrants from China. More older immigrants from China that came over in the Qing dynasty or before. And the neighborhood tensions, when these 2 million mainlanders came in, the rich guys would take the nice houses in Tianmu and they'd take over what the Japanese had, etc. But a lot of the people who are, like my friend Jerry, his father was a sergeant his grandfather was a sergeant in the Republic of China Army. And he told me stories about that, the link with China, how his grandfather had joined the army, and then how the Communist Party, the Mao Zedong's forces, had taken over the village where the woman he had recently married lived.
Yeah.
So he snuck back at night during the Civil War and rescued her and brought her back.
That's a Rambo movie, man.
Yeah, it's a Rambo movie. Yeah, but probably more sneaky. I don't think he was like,
Yeah. with the
I'll give you a war you don't believe.
Yeah, with the M496. Yeah, that's really incredible.
And then when Jerry moved here, he was a little kid, and it was just the neighborhood tensions between us and the other.
What they call the 49ers, right? I mean, the people came over, they call them 49ers.
Jerry's just a skinny little kid. He's growing up. He goes to school. He doesn't know why these Taiwanese kids want to beat him up. And they have gangs, and that's actually why they got one of the reasons for the Bamboo Union gang
Right,
is
triads.
these kids defending themselves against aggressive situations. And he told me what it was like growing up in Neihu, and how rough it was and how like wild east it was. And now you go there to Neihu, the new AIT, all those buildings near Neihu MRT station, so modern. It's like Singapore kind of feeling, right? So modern. But just 40, 50 years ago, it was completely different.
I'm going to make an add up before we go on. But do you feel sometimes the missing elements, because you travel through so many places, the missing elements of the history that has seemed to be now, how would you say, diluted or kind of like out of focus? I mean, does that go through your mind, especially now when you look back?
Yeah, people don't like to talk about the history since World War II in Taiwan because it divides them. And there's curriculum wars over that. How shall we portray the history of Taiwan in the history books? Is it part of greater Chinese history? Is it part of this feisty independent island? And as in so many Taiwanese conflicts, people compromise by shutting up about it and just letting it go instead of, getting right in there and trying to win.
But hey, how about this? Strapping on a pair of shoes and taking a walk around Taiwan and having a good chat to the good old days with your buddy there is one thing. But you just dropped a wicked load of facts on us. And in your book, there's a whole boatload, a whole shipyard full of facts in itself. So where are you getting all of this historical information? Because, during my time here in Taiwan, I can identify from going to museums and stuff like that the stuff that you're saying in your book, I'm like, man, I saw that in the museum like a few months back or something like that. So I know that is fact verified. So how are you doing that?
Well, thank you very much. And that's interesting. That was part of my learning process. As I walked around the island, I became curious about it. And I would see military installations, for example, and I would see a place like Fulong. And I'd walk around Fulong and I'd say, that's interesting. Why is the Aboriginal reservation over there on this muddy part of the river? It doesn't look very good. This used to be an Aboriginal fishing place. Why is it over there? And I do a little research. And thanks to Wikipedia and all the sources of information on Taiwanese history that are out there, I was able to satisfy my curiosity. And then later I thought, well, I'm writing this book. I have a responsibility to my reader to try to give them a basic version of Taiwanese history that is reasonably accurate. I'm not a historian. I'm not an academic.
But I loved it because that's what I studied in college in China, history, and I got very little Taiwan history. When I got here 30-something years ago, I really felt really refreshed by some of the things you brought up in the book. And you reminded me of stuff that I kind of even overlook. And I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
But, still, though, I'm a little bit more curious about this. You said that you started on Wikipedia there, and then you kind of refined your curiosity and really cared about fact-checking and stuff like that. So what does that mean? You got buried in the stacks and the Dewey Decimals in the back and then started rifling through the old recipe cards to find the books you need, or what?
No, I use the internet. It was almost entirely internet. There were some sources, the books of Jerome F. Keating, PhD. I looked at his books. I read books by Linda Gale Arrigo and Lynn Miles. I read a lot of the standard history books that are out there. I read Formosan Odyssey by John Grant Ross, who is the editor, my editorial consultant for this book. But a lot of it was through Michael Turton and Michael Turton's blog, which unfortunately is no longer active, The View from Taiwan. So I just found sources of information that led me to other sources of information. And I would just go home at night and just spend hours on the internet reading about it.
Caffeinated and motivated.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Since we're on the topic of books real quick here, that's a question that I was really going through my head, because I've known you now for a couple of years here in Taiwan, and I've known other people do some pretty amazing things, but like I don't know a lot of authors, all right? And I had a guy that I worked with years ago, Dan, and he wrote an amazing book about his travels with famous rock bands and stuff, and I always found it fascinating of like, what is the process to get a book written and published? And now here you are, a fellow blue noser from the rock, over here in a completely foreign speaking country, and somehow you managed to pull off that endeavor. So how do you do that?
Well, how I did it might be different than how other people do it.
Okay.
So I can tell you how I did it. I'd written articles before, so I'm comfortable writing. But writing a book is a big project. And how did I do it? Well, first of all, when I was doing the walk around Taiwan, I had a blog. I was on Google Blogger. So I had a record. I had dates, times, places, facts. I had photos. So I had a lot of raw material.
Did you update that every day when you were out and about?
No, I would come back. I was lazy about it. I would catch up every month or two on the dates. I did the walk over 8 years, so it was a long period. But the most important thing is I had that record there. And turning the book into, so you have, anyone can write a book. I had the material to write a book. Everyone here has the material to write a book in one shape or form. Then you need the concept. All right. And the motivation. So the concept was given to me by John Grant Ross, who is the chief editor at Camphor Press. And he wrote a famous book called Formosan Odyssey. He also wrote a book called You Don't Know China. I think it's 22 Myths About China. He's recently written another book called Taiwan in 100 Books. It's a very interesting book. And he said, when I was in Dongshi in Puzi in Jiayi, where he lives with his wife, he said, "Come on over and we'll drink a few beer." And man, that guy can drink beer. No, I'm serious. He could drink an entire case, entire 2-4.
Wow.
No problem. He said, "Why don't you write a book, John? Why don't you write a book?" So I said, "Yeah, okay, what a good idea." So then I needed a concept. So you need material, you need motivation, and you need a concept which brings the whole book together. And so you have to have some kind of theme. So that was the thing I struggled with. And the thing I did was the theme I decided to go for was to parallel the history of Taiwan in some way with my journey. Not that I was directly relating to it, but that when I started the walk, I was walking away from Taipei. I was walking along the East Coast into Taiwan's primeval past, the geological past. Yeah, the geological past, the fault lines are there.
Right.
The Aboriginal people are best preserved there. It's more of a window into the past. And then to Tainan, it's like where Taiwan became like Taiwan as opposed to a Formosan Aboriginal island. And then from Tainan to Taipei, kind of like the journey, the progression of Taiwan. So I had to think of narratives which matched my journey. And that was it. That gave me the formula I needed. The last thing I needed was patience and persistence. And it was taking too long and I was getting all frustrated at progress. But I just told myself, well, you finished the walk. It took a long time, but you finished it. You're going to finish the book.
And a publisher. Don't forget that.
Publisher, self-published in Taiwan.
Wicked.
Yeah.
You've been here. It took you 8 years to write this down, and you just said, "Oh, it's taking too long." To write a book, how long is too long? We really never know. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a good point.
you can write a book that'll take you 20 years, and you still, after writing the book, will feel that you forgot to mention something. But you've been here 8 years. You're writing this book. And you must have seen a lot of notable changes during those 8 years.
Yes.
I mean, you're on the coast, but you still see things. What are some of the notable things you can talk about right now that, sticks out the most in your mind?
Well, physical changes. two physical changes were notable. Increase in garbage on the beaches. When I started doing the walk, the idea of a beach covered in plastic garbage was kind of new. It's like I was surprised. I saw a few of them, and they weren't as bad as they are now. But now it's a common phenomenon. You have all these beach cleanups everywhere. So it's like everywhere that the beaches are getting worse and worse and worse in Taiwan. Second thing, infrastructure. Taiwanese love their infrastructure. Overpasses, viaducts, roads, bridges, new highways. The new Suhua Highway, which is boring as hell because it's mainly tunnels. It's safe.
You don't say anything.
No, let's go to see the beautiful Suhua Highway and see the inside of a tunnel behind a tour bus. I mean, so it's like that. The political changes are the most interesting, and they're less evident in a sort of, glaring in your face physical way, like a bridge, a new bridges or plastic is on the beach. But the political changes, the sunflower movement, the revenge of the millennials, the generational change, which is really what drives change in Taiwan, because the grip I love Taiwan, I love Taiwanese, but the grip of the older generation in Taiwan is a little bit too tight sometimes.
Can you go into, this is a very important comment that you made about culture, society, and generation gaps, at least in the Western terms, but not basically in the Eastern terms. Can you talk specifically about one example of, you notice the differences between generations here in Taiwan?
Well, the differences, millennials psychology, millennials at work, et cetera, is well documented in the West. In Taiwan, it's also the case. Millennials have a higher sense of self-esteem. And but they may be a little bit lazier, but they have a strong self-image, and they're open to everything. The internet has opened them up to anything. So they're more sophisticated, more cosmopolitan.
He's going to cause us to get a lot of trolls. He said that the millennials are a little bit lazy. Okay, so you answer those messages.
Okay.
Why?
Because you're younger than I am.
I'm not shouldering that burden.
You're younger than I am, so you do it.
Oh.
But I don't think my insights or observations on this topic can be more useful to this question than the consensus, which is the Li Fa Yuan, the sunflower movement, is the ultimate sign of the maturation of young people in Taiwan. They're grabbing the political reins. They're pushing back against the KMT. They're pushing back against China. They're saying, I don't feel like I'm Chinese, so don't shove China down my throat. And that was, I think, the ultimate sign of that.
So do you think that being Canadians, that there's some learning points that Canadians could definitely adopt from the Taiwanese and make things a little bit better over there as well?
Yeah, save money. Don't be ashamed to live with. Don't be ashamed to live with your parents until you can save some money. Saving money is not bad. Don't have to win every argument.
Wow.
You can be peaceful. Keep working at your education. Education is lifelong. Think of the future generations. Don't just think of your life. Think of future generations. I think that could improve.
He said education.
Yeah.
We're in education. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because education has changed here a lot, and it caused an influx of changes too. And those 8 years walking around the island, you see a lot of that, right?
Well, how the education has changed, I think, is that the internet has just, as everyone knows, it's not really a big observation, has just been getting huge and huge. It's gone from a track to a small road to a information superhighway. And it's just all the kids are informed by this. So you have to speak to them about things that interest them. And part of education now, I think, is teaching them how to be good shoppers for internet stuff. So like a lot of my students, I'll say, try this site, try that, try these search parameters to find what you want.
Cool. I've never actually really had the opportunity to do that. My teaching style in the past has pretty much been like building trust and building relationships and giving kids a lot of life advice so that they don't make the same mistakes that I did or that friends of mine have done over the years. And I've lost friends because of that, and showing them the real consequences behind that as well. Cool. I was reading yesterday that I think it was like 95% of high school graduates now are college-ettes, and most of those guys finish university as well. So, but I think that there's a lot of open doors. You said, where people are living with their families and stuff for longer, saving money and things like that. I think that there's kind of some unique opportunities that allow them to get those doors open to the university, right? But let me flip that earlier question around where I said, can Canadians learn something from Taiwan? Let's flip it around to what can Taiwan learn from Canadians that could make things a little bit better here?
Ooh, switch around.
What could Taiwanese learn from Canadians? Don't be afraid to throw an idea out there. If you're in a discussion, don't be afraid to toss an idea out there. Don't feel in a serious situation, brainstorming, bouncing ideas off each other. Let the creativity flow. People are born creative. Every kid is creative. It's just natural. You just see them playing, and you feed that creativity, and they'll love it. Unfortunately, I think that the educational system in Taiwan does produce a kind of somewhat restricted mentality in some cases, and that creativity and spontaneity is dissuaded. So I just say maybe just turn up this creativity a little bit more. Turn down the social control just a little bit. Like you see a little 2-year-old girl on the MRT with her mom, and she goes like, blah, 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 blah. Just not very loud. She's not hitting anybody. She's not being disruptive, but her mother is like, shh.
She's being a normal kid.
Yeah, but she's not even being not like some rowdy, bratty boy who's like smashing something, but just a little girl, la, la, la. I've seen that so many times. And mother's like, shh. So maybe just like let the kids, keep that childish or childlike, creative, spontaneous sense going a little bit longer.
Chuck E. Cheese over here, where a kid can be
goodness.
a kid.
But that's tricky. It's tricky to do as an educator because you got to allow them their childhood exploration, but yet keep the cultural, moral, positive parts of it. That's got to be a very thin line to walk on. I mean, have you been noticing that?
Well, I teach mainly adults, so I don't get so much into moral training. The thing I will experience with adults is trying to get them to give an idea, and they're like, oh I don't know, I really don't know what to say, and to try to help bridge them, because of the cross-cultural thing is often an opportunity to expand your personality. I think, in my experience, dealing with the Quebecois culture in Montreal, and dealing with the Latin culture in Venezuela, I think I've learned how to be a slightly better person. Like, I think I've been able to improve my personality by dealing with Quebecers and Latin Americans, just learn a bit more about spontaneity and naturalness about emotion, which isn't a big priority in the real Anglo family, right? So
you walked around the island and you've been to so many other places before here, Korea. Have you made any correlations between these different places that you've been to Taiwan, or anything, or any places in Taiwan that kind of like brought you back to that, everyone in the world is your family in some ways?
No, I haven't been to any other place similar to Taiwan except Japan or China, or Singapore, I guess. They're all slightly different versions, but I'd say this East Asian culture and the cosmopolitan, advanced cities and areas in East Asia have a very unique feeling to them, which I haven't felt anywhere else.
That's a good handoff.
Hey, well, you were just talking about improving yourself, and we left on creativity as well. Let me jump in on that for a second here. Because a lot of people, we were talking about writing advice earlier, they hit these like writing roadblocks, these writing blocks, right? So I'm sure that there must have been times in your time writing this book that you've hit that as well. So what's that like? How do you get over that? And also, do you find that you yourself have a better creative mind or a different perspective on things to be in that creative mode now?
Well, in terms of roadblocks, I think I didn't really have a major roadblock because I had writing a book about a trip, and the trip was completed. The trip was already done. So I didn't really have, it was basically a travel log that's enhanced by some other material. So I had the skeleton there. I didn't have a major roadblock. I had a number of challenges as a writer to try to think of how to bridge this, how to match that, something like that. As to being more creative, I think I don't know if I'm more creative or not. I would say that I'm better able to take on this kind of project. I think having written one book, it will be much easier to write another book.
Are you thinking about that?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Well,
I am.
in theory, I found your book more than just a travel blog, okay? Because you mentioned details of dates and stuff like that. You know, just not to take off from the publishing side of it. And as a student of Chinese and Taiwanese history, you really confirmed a lot of my thinking, and it actually brought out a lot of elements that are just hidden in most of the time. I mean, when you look back on that, what have you discovered that, well, you've been here this long, what have you discovered that kind of like sticks out in the cultural sense? That's what I should say. It sticks out the most, I should say.
In the cultural sense, in Taiwan, what sticks out the most, I couldn't say one single thing.
Right.
I could say there's a Taiwanese personality, which is a composite of thing. I'd say what sticks out the most is that history is important, but the future is even more important than the history. So I think Taiwan isn't just a present that has a past. Taiwan is evolving towards the future, and where that goes, I care about a lot. And that the action towards that future is happening right around us in the world right now. So that it brings me to try to be more aware of what's happening in the world, especially in East Asia.
Well, hey, man, talking about the future of Taiwan, in my time here, I've had a lot of friends disappear because the relationships with their countries. I studied Chinese at a university here at Furen University. And I had a huge group of my friends just disappear at the drop of a hat. They had to give up their schooling and everything like that because their countries are no longer allied with Taiwan.
Wow.
Now, I understand Canada's on this, like, really weird position where they'll support them in some things, and then other things, like, let's talk about, like, corporations like Air Canada, for example, would just drop the ball and leave Taiwan in the dust, even on something like a Canada Day. Ladies and gentlemen at home, Canada Day in Taiwan is not on July 1st, baby, but it is wonderful. We got concerts, we got a lot of good Canadians. It usually happens a few days before. But, man, tell us about your experience, because I know that you definitely raised your voice against that Air Canada issue.
Right. So the Air Canada issue is a real disappointment to a lot of Canadians, because Canadians like to think of themselves as the good guys. You know, the Mounties are coming, that's good, and Canada is supposed to be a good example of a decent, liberal Western country, and a sort of to represent the good side of the West.
A peacekeeper, too.
Peacekeeper, etc. And then I was involved at that time with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce Small Business Committee. We were having a lot of pro-entrepreneurial events, showcasing entrepreneurs and encouraging entrepreneurialism. And I was involved with this group, and to varying levels, and I was dying out a little bit for some somewhat unrelated political reasons, but I was still involved. These were still my people. And then Air Canada dropped a bombshell. They agreed. This is 2 years ago. They agreed to change their online designation of air travel destinations in Taiwan to China. So instead, they would be, for example, previously they would have had Taipei, Taiwan. They changed that to Taipei, China. Taichung, China. Kaohsiung, China. And they did this, and it made international news. And they did this because they were signing a big air travel deal in China. So obviously this was a quid pro quo that the Chinese government had exacted from them in exchange for access to a potentially lucrative market. So at this time, it's like, well, I understood why they did that for corporate reasons, but that is unacceptable from the point of view of a ethical, good guy Canadian in Taiwan. And they were a major sponsor, not just for the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, but for Canada Day. So they had the Air Canada stage. So all the bands, excellent bands, would play on the Air Canada stage, and this Air Canada sponsorship by the same organization that is sort of basically betraying or dealing a nasty, giving a bad deal to Taiwan. So this was really upsetting to me.
Well, I feel like a lot of people treat the Taiwan-China issue with a lot of ambiguity that is really unfair. And I think the thing that I've said that is really, that argument hasn't been defeated yet, I can say, is that if you hold a visa to Taiwan in your Canadian passport, see how far it gets you if you try to go to China. If you have a Chinese visa in your Canadian passport, see how far that gets you in Taiwan. So where's the ambiguity there?
That's right. Exactly. That's the de facto in separate country, right?
Mm-hmm. So how do you want to see things change in the future then?
Well, first I was mentioning the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I just felt I should say that I was disappointed in them for this decision, but overall it's a great organization. It does a lot of good. It gives a lot of charity money to the Mackay Hospital Children's Wing. It's a good
son
organization.
was born there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good, cool. So I didn't want to slag them too heavily. What I'd like to see in the future, well, that's fine. It's an interesting question, but no one really cares what I want to see in the future. But I'll share it with you in case you're interested. I would like to see a sense of resolve among Taiwanese people to defend their identity no matter what, because I think that willingness, I think if you look at the Vietnam War, the American War, as they call it that, why the Vietnamese were ultimately successful is they just didn't give up. It's very hard to conquer a bunch of people that just don't give up. So if the Taiwanese had this attitude, we're just not going to give up, it would basically make Taiwan unconquerable. I'd like to see Taiwanese toughen up in terms of their relationship with China. Not in an aggressive way. I think President Tsai Ing-wen's doing a great job, but just be ready. Just be ready to deal with that. I would like to see continued American support for Taiwan on a military level. I'd like to see a stronger commitment from Canada towards that. That would be my personal wish list, but no one really cares.
Well, you know what, John? I got to disagree with you when you say that nobody cares what you think, because you know what? I got to say, I truly do admire you in the fact that you've got a book about your experience in Taiwan, and I can call my friends in Canada and they're like, hey man, can you teach us how to cook Thai chicken? I'm like, dude, this is not the same place. What are you talking about? So you know what? This is a book that somebody can really pick up. They can find out about the history. They can find about your local experiences, which I can say from reading your book, it's very positive. It has a lot of great things to say. You can find out about beautiful places and things. So really, I think that we would care about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something that should be seen.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're also doing something here with a really important group, Hackstrong, I think it's called. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, the Hackstrong Charity. That's right.
And this is something important that I think we need to. I hope you can give our listeners here, viewers here, a little insight into this foundation, this group.
Okay, well, Haxstrong is a charity, basically foreigners helping foreigners in their darkest hour. It's not only foreigners helping only foreigners, but it's primarily the international community members helping other members of the international community. And it's not the rich members of the international community that need help. It's English teachers, people with alcohol problems, people with mental health problems, people going through depression, people who get into really bad accidents, etc.
Right.
In Taipei City, there are more resources. There's the Community Services Center. There's the de facto embassies. In other parts of Taiwan, there's the only people to help you if you're a foreigner and you get into a nasty motorcycle accident, it's your buddies, it's your friends.
Yes.
So Hackstrong is kind of an enhanced form of that. It's got a website, Facebook presence. They have people who are skilled at dealing with hospitals. We have lists that we cooperate with the Community Services Center in Tianmu, an excellent organization to give people referrals to psychological counselors, to doctors, marriage counselors, legal help if they're going through a bad legal situation.
Right.
And so the idea is basically that if you know someone in the foreign community who's really in trouble, they really need help, if you can help them yourself, go ahead. But if you need help helping them, contact Hackstrong. We will help.
Yeah, we all need it sometime.
What's the website?
Well, it's mainly on Facebook, Hackstrong, Haxstrong, hackstrong.org.
We'll put it right in the show notes, too.
Yeah. And it was started, there was a South African guy called Greg Haxton, and he was in a motorcycle accident. He was hit he had a few drinks, and then he was hit by someone else who'd had a few drinks. So don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
Lesson 1. Lesson 2, don't drink and drive. Okay, it's very simple, but he did. And he was in terrible shape. He was very, very close to death. And he was in the ICU in Kaohsiung, and his friends got together and they came around him. They would touch him, talk to him, contact his parents, talk with the doctor. You know, often doctors will go an extra inch, an extra mile to help a patient if they see people around them who really care about it. They brought him back to life, and he went back to South Africa, and he went through, you know, physical rehabilitation, and he became profoundly depressed because this guy before was a handsome, charming rugby player, university graduate. All the guys wanted to be him. All the girls wanted to be with him. And then he was looking himself in the mirror. He wasn't the same guy.
Yeah.
Wasn't functioning the same way, you know, really sad story. And he became extremely depressed. And then one day in counseling, and he got counseling because sometimes there's been times in my life where I should have gotten counseling and I didn't. I stuck it out. I was stubborn. So instead I used beer as my counselor, and I would, you know, start fights in bars and stuff like that. And fortunately, that part of my life is over, but I should have had counseling. So he went to a counselor. Maybe without counseling, maybe he might have done something to himself, right? So the counselor helped him and helped him realize, no, you'll never be the same again, but you can have a new role in the future. You know, the future is not written yet. So he made up his mind to go back to Taiwan and help foreigners in Taiwan. So he's sort of the heart.
Wow.
The heart of Hackstrong, yeah.
Cool.
This is really strong because, you know, Taiwanese, there's a saying that says, that means I don't like to lose. And he sounds like one of those guys that say, hey, man, yes, I've been through bad times. Everyone goes through it. Now I'm coming back and I'm going to be back stronger. And I'm kind of glad that you're a nice guy now because you're a big dude. I'm glad I know you're back in those days. I'm going to bring back to the book. There's a part in the book that I found kind of interesting, and I always wanted to know because Kyle talked a little bit with you about, you know, the falling rock situation,
Yes.
you know, that could have taken your life and stuff like that. Just go more into some examples of times when you found yourself in other precarious situations, especially this may not be precarious, but you found yourself in a place where you saw like a road sign that had bullet holes in it. I mean,
That's right, yeah.
this is
that's
not
right.
the ghetto, but you know, there's times like that.
That was such
Crazy.
a surprise. It's like an old abandoned road section on the side of a cliff, and there's definitely bullet holes. And I thought, okay, could it be anything else? And I took a look at it.
No way.
No, it had to be bullet holes. They're all exactly the same size. They pushed out on the
Shotgun.
side.
Oh.
Yeah, no, they were like 9mm or something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I have no idea. Some guys maybe.
Target practice.
Yeah, but of course there'd be no danger on this abandoned road, on this cliff. There's no one in the background to worry about, right? So
When you put yourself in some really precarious, dangerous situations, walking on side of like cliffs and stuff like that, man, are you
Yeah.
crazy, man? 'Cause
Yeah.
a few foreigners have gone missing for a couple of months, you know, in situations like that.
yeah, I just went back last Sunday. I went back with a guy, Dave Johnson, who does a YouTube video called Tracks. I won't talk more about it. It's an excellent video, TRAX. And we explored some more of these old sections of the road. And I could, if you like, I can send you some pictures later.
No
but
problem.
It's basically road fragments covered in fallen marble and stuff like that, and these old road bits. And it's a bit eerie. It's a bit
A lot of it's
scary.
history too, right?
Yeah.
Look back. I mean, I have a friend who he's also a YouTuber. Went to some kind of mining area and found an old Japanese bomb.
Oh, really?
He had to report it and everything, you know.
Wow.
Wow.
Things like that is really shocking. I mean, I mean, how about trips that you've been to that you found anything out of the ordinary? I found very weird, like ancient pieces of look like dinosaur shells, whatever you want to call it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish that I had. It hasn't been on like a road trip per se like that I found some interesting things. Excuse me, but the things that I found most interesting is that Taiwan has a lot of alleys. In fact, like with my friends, we just talk about this like alley culture. You just walk down this like, it looks like where they throw out their garbage, and you just walk around the corner and there's some kind of amazing little curio shop or something like that. And I remember being down in Tainan and doing just that, exploring some old alleyways, and I found this antique shop. And for some reason, like normally that kind of stuff, I just kind of pass by it unless I'm like got some money in my pocket. I'm like, ooh, I really really got to spin here. But anyways, I did go into this one shop. I was waiting for this ice cream store to open, in fact, and I started to walk around, and the owner of the shop, I guess it was a really slow day for him, he really took notice into me, and he's like, hey, do you want to spend some time and actually just kind of know about some of these things here?
Oh, cool.
And so he had this like jade general's necklace piece, and it matched up with the emperor's. So when you put them together, it makes one solid, like, precious item.
Wow.
And so that would be his form of identification that says like he can speak for the emperor. And now that did come from as a treasure from like China from ages past. But the most interesting thing in his store was actually a wooden box with a leather cord. And I was like, what the heck is this? And I said, it looks like maybe it could be like a herbalist box or something like that. And he said, aha, you are very close.
Uh-oh, this is the
This
movie.
is not a herbalist box. Taiwan, at one time, had its own brand of witchcraft. And this
Really?
was a witch's box that she would carry the items for her magic potions in.
This is so cool, man. I need to, but by the way, I need to know the address of that ice cream parlor.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
But this is very cool. I mean, because you also did walks by certain ports, seaside ports, and you met fishermen that before they go out to sea, they would pray to the goddess Mazu, and this relationship that how would you say the seafaring Taiwanese have with the goddess Mazu and her two demons.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you really, this is out of your mystical business. You got me into now.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of cool. Yeah, that's what Kyle is talking about. It's extremely cool. That's kind of a little esoteric things. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Matsu, of course, is very well known. She's from Fujian. About 1,000 years ago, she was apparently a witch or a shamaness, I guess is a good witch. And who knows the real story there? I mean, who knows that? But she was credited with divine interventions, helping sailors in peril on the sea. And then she died at a young age, and then she became deified or canonized in a way to become the goddess of the sea. And then she's got her two demons, the green eyes, the green god who can see 10,000 miles.
Right.
And then the red god who can hear from the wind. And apparently the legend, which is, obviously a bit of a crock, was that they both fell in love with her, and she said, I'll see whose kung fu is the strongest, and she beat them both, but they respected her and they became her friends and bodyguards. Wow. But I'd say I can't really speak to how Taiwanese feel about religion, because my religious experience is very different. But I would say that when I've gone to temples in Taiwan and I've participated in religious activities, I've done so from the point of view that I am participating, as a bit of a foreign cultural tourist, but I'm still participating as someone who's as part of the cultural imagination of a people. So that I'm not sort of pretending to be a Taoist or a Buddhist, but I'm not sort of, okay, I'll do it because that's expected of me. This is a ritual that everyone's doing together, and has symbols, it has feelings associated with it, and I've tried to channel the feeling, and I think it's this subconscious belief that there's another dimension that can give you luck.
So is this what you mean by religious imagination? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's imagine the religious world. You go to a temple, there's little stories, this little guy talking to a monster, and then there's this guy with a face coming out of his stomach, and there's this incredibly complex and rich mythology. We get the Greeks and the Romans, and we can learn about other cultures
all have
too.
them, right?
Yep. We can learn about that, but then the whole Chinese mythology is fascinating, and it's a folk mythology as well. You see all these stories, Buddhist mythology, Taoist mythology, the Monkey King, all these things. And it's a world of the imagination. So I've tried to participate in, when I go to a temple or something, I try to just participate in, try to feel the feeling that other people are having as a participant.
Oh, really? So have you stuck a lamp through your cheeks?
Oh, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just share a bit of a fact about Taiwan. If you grew up watching like Ripley's Believe It or Not or National Geographic or something, Taiwan is one of those countries where they stick rods through their cheeks and whip their back with these like sharp tooth swords
So
and
they take
things
some
like that.
herbs or something to help
Yeah,
numbify
because-
their bodies or something.
Talking about Matsu, there's actually a big festival every year where they go on a big walkabout themselves around the island and
That's
carry
right,
a big
yes.
statue of Matsu.
Yeah.
And they channel all this religious energy and imagination, as you would put it, and they believe that they are like the
And money.
Lord's representative and that gods will protect them. And so they inflict in tremendous amounts of pain on themselves. But they say, anyways, no, I'm fine. Right?
You're fine,
So did you get into that?
No, I'm no, not something similar.
Did you get a chance
with
to
the
see
girls?
it though
But
during your travels?
to see the
Did you see that during your travels? Because
no, I've never seen that stuff.
Really?
No, I've never seen any of the really. I've seen it on YouTube videos. I've never seen any of the extreme religious stuff. I've seen the Songjiangzhen, which is the Guanyin temple procession in Kaohsiung and Neimen, and that's fascinating. But that doesn't get as kind of nasty and punk as what you're talking about.
That's totally different from pole dancing, but
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
we've got some of that here.
this is an interview, rated G. But hey, you cultural. You said something about detachment. I mean, sometimes we, as foreign nationals, or some of us choose to call ourselves expats or immigrants. What do you mean by this cultural separation you just mentioned? Sometimes you have to say, well, this is what I was raised in. I have to detach myself and see it from a different point of view. Was that difficult for you while walking around and seeing so much?
Well, when you're walking around, you're kind of in a certain state of mind. It's a unique mindset. A lot of it, I was alone, and I was alone on my journey, and I didn't feel bad being alone. I felt lonely, but it was okay. I guess there is a certain connection to a place when you walk through it that you don't get any other way.
Yeah.
Even biking through it is great. Biking is probably
Too
the most
fast, right?
Well, it's probably if you want to see Taiwan in great detail and get a lot of exercise, biking is probably the best way because it's doable. You can do it and you did it super fast. You can do it in 2 weeks or whatever, and that's doable, right? You can do it in 2 goes 1 week and then come back and do it another week. But you walk through a place. You may be a foreigner, but you're in that place with them. You're on that beach. You're walking through. You're at the train station waiting for the
Eating
train.
the same food.
You're standing up. Yeah. You feel there's always a sense that you're the foreigner.
Yeah, you said that in your book, but but you still have that live that live love for the life here. You see, live love for the life here.
Yeah.
Even though you're still a Doa, you still feel part of it. Isn't that kind of like Maldo? It's kind of like contradictory in some cases.
Yeah. Sometimes things don't have to make sense.
Wow, and you just swallow the pill like that.
Well, no, I mean, it's contradictory, but it is what it is. I mean, there was a story I heard about a African-American man who moved to Hualien, and he married a woman there, and he had kids with her. I think they've gone back to the States long since. But he said in his first years there, it was almost unbearable. People would be like, oh, this is like 25 years ago. People would be
times, right.
yelling and saying, oh, look, there's the black guy. And then literally he said people on balconies saying, the black guy's coming through, etc. And after a while, it got better. And it got better and slowly better. And then later on, he was just like Ted.
Yes.
And the local area people get used to you. So
They know you, right?
the local people get used to. So I'm not always the weird guy. I'm not always like Commander Data on Star Trek
But you're
or
not
something
special
like
anymore.
that. But among the people I know, among my students, among my wife, with my family, my friends, my neighbors, I'm just me. And they'll think of me as a foreigner, but like, hey, John, just like if I see Kyle, I say, hey, John. Just like that.
You know what? That really resonates with me because I got the same passion from your book. We're speaking on the same wavelength because I feel really passionate about don't call me a foreigner. I'll die here. This is my home, and what the sense I get from you, especially what you said in your book, where you said, hey, you can argue the fact that I'm a foreigner, but you will not argue the fact that my feet aren't. Don't give me that. Don't give me that.
Yeah, that's why it's Taiwanese feet.
Yeah.
I can't claim to be Taiwanese. I don't even know what that would mean.
Yeah.
But I claim to have Taiwanese feet.
Yeah, the same thing. I feel the same way. Like, way back in the day when seeing a foreign national was very something unique and strange. Now, Taiwan has grown up a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, especially foreigners, they sit on the bus and no one sits next to them, and it has to bring out. They have to bring out the negative aspects of it. Now I got to the point where you don't want to sit next to me. I got a place to put my bag.
Yeah.
But now those opportunities are becoming less and less, and that means for me it's becoming better and better.
Right.
Because people see me not as.
The sense that I kind of get from that, though, the feeling that I get is not that it's like they're accepting as much as they are getting used to having you around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
It's no longer a big, wow, look at that strange face. It's
So
just
imagine I'm walking down the street and then a kid is not going to say to me, foreigner. They're just going to look at me and not say anything. I'll feel insulted. I'll feel insulted. I'll feel at least left out. But in your book, you talked a lot about the people. You talked about times where you went through the back roads, or not even roads, the bushes. And you bump into people in the local population. And in one situation, you walked into like a farm area. It was I think it was an Aboriginal community. I forgot which one it was. Can you talk a little bit about your interactions with the indigenous population here during your walks?
Well, I didn't have a lot. I walked through one farm area, Aboriginal area by the sea. I forget the name of it right now, but it was unfortunately similar to experiences I've had on First Peoples reservations in Canada, which it was poor and it looked gnarly. And there's one strip, it was somewhere in Hualien, and the main road went that way, and there's a little road that went down by the sea. So I followed that, and there was just a lot of bad-looking houses and lots of beer bottles in the garbage. And there was 3 police patrols in 10 minutes. I just got a bad feeling from it. I don't know.
Oh, man, I got a cold chill. My family's First Nation, Mi'kmaq and Métis in Nova Scotia. And so that sends a chill down my spine, man, because that sounds a lot like what I've seen, where we lived in Canada.
Yeah.
And I lived in Alberta, too, where they've got their own First Nation people out there. And, James and I have talked before about how there's, missing Indigenous population out there, missing First Nation people. And it goes completely unaccounted for. And I feel like that is an issue that really touches base here as well, and when you say that you really didn't have a lot of interaction, that you didn't see them, that sounds really scary to me too, because they were here first and there's none left.
Yes.
Well, no, I was just walking through, and most of the indigenous people that I met in Taiwan are friendly, but they're kind of more. They're quiet. They don't point at you. They don't say you're a foreigner. They just they're helpful and quiet. One place when I was going close to the Alangei Old Trail, which is one of the ancient trails that goes by the seaside, it's really worth trying. It's beautiful, beautiful trail. From Taidong County into Pindong County, I walked through an Aboriginal place. They had artwork. The houses had Aboriginal features to it, like artwork and stuff. And it was very laid back. It was very different. Didn't feel negative. It's a little bit poor, but dignified poverty. And I was walking along, and this guy said, "Hey, the road over there, the road stops. You have to hike it." I said, "Okay," and he's like, "Okay." Very friendly, but
otherwise you would have got hurt. You see, right? If they didn't tell you where to go,
yeah, he's telling you where the trail is going and we're stopping. Yeah, it's useful information.
I had a similar situation. I took a motorcycle ride down there, and I got to Pingdong, and I got stopped by the police. Police said, "Where are you coming from?" I told them where. "How long you been driving? Have you been on a bike? Get off the bike, follow us." And I was like, oh my God. Took me up into a farm area, and they say, "Did you eat? You haven't eaten? You're going to eat." And I had no choice. I couldn't dare say no. They had me sit down, and this guy had a long shotgun. It was 2 policemen.
All right.
They were local, original. And I met their grandma, who spoke English. And she was about 100 years old. She spoke English, the local dialect they speak there. Yes, Taiwanese Mandarin, English, old school English. Old school English. So she must have been
Jesuit English.
Yeah, that's yes. Yeah,
Like she'd gone to a missionary school and was
Yeah.
a good student or something.
They made me eat. Okay, after I ate, I would say, okay, I got to get out of here. No, they made me sleep. They made me sit down and they took my bags, made me take a rest. 6 hours later, they woke me up, took me down the mountain, put me back on the motorcycle. I wish to God I can find those people now.
Oh, wow. What an
wish
interesting
to
experience.
God. That would never happen to me back in the United States. So this is like, this is one of these little, it didn't cost them nothing.
Yeah.
That has me connected with them in some way. That's all you have to do at one time.
Yeah, during my bike trip, actually, I had a guy come out of a store on the side of the highway, waved us down, and he said, "Come on into my store." And we're like, "Well, I had been to Mexico before," and I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know if I really want to buy stuff." He said, "No." He said, "Listen, it's not too often that I get foreigners down here." He's speaking to me in Chinese. I didn't know how.
In Mandarin, right?
Yeah, Mandarin Chinese. So he's saying, you know what? It's not too often I see your like around here. And okay,
You mean
hey,
the lighter light ones, right?
I see that you got some room in your saddlebags and stuff there. They're looking kind of loose. He's like, let me fill them up. Gave us water.
Oh,
gave
yes.
us. He said, it turns out that his specialty is honey.
Oh, the best honey.
Yeah, so he hooked us up with honey and everything, which actually was great in the end because it gave us energy that we
Yes,
needed for the road.
fresh energy.
And he gave us some snacks, honey flavored snacks and things like that. And he's like, and so we said, you know, what do we owe you? He said, this isn't about that. He said that this is a time where I want to do something for you. And he's like, oh, just share my story in the future. So there you are, buddy. Here I am.
Yeah.
Talking to the internet folks, sharing a story. But
It
yeah,
just
I had a
takes
beautiful experience too.
One trip like that. Just one little tiny, doesn't cost you anything. And we're losing this in places where we come from. We're losing, especially now of the time of the COVID-19 Wuhan virus, whatever you want to call it. And your book reminds us who are not born here, don't have the Republic of China passport, that there's something to value here and to protect and show people back home that there's a lot more in common than we think.
You're right.
And there's also, you're going to discover something you don't expect. You know, you go on these trips, you put yourself out there, and you take reasonable precautions. I'm not saying people should do what I do and go on these crazy roads. I would do it differently. If I did it again, I would plan interactions with people. I would arrange for it. I would set it up. I would set up situations. I should have interacted more with people. But I discovered what I discovered. And you discovered that fascinating story of the witch's box. And then you discovered this real kind of almost ancient traditional hospitality.
Yeah.
You will be my guest, and you are my guest. You didn't expect that.
No.
Yeah. And so you go out there, you travel, and many people have come to Taiwan and they get used to it. The first 6 months or a year is a rush. And they discover it, and then it sort of becomes more normal after a while. But there's still trips you can take in Taiwan. You can discover amazing stuff.
And I think you guys both hit on something pretty important there, that this is kind of like something that's passe. You know, where we come from in Canada, it's called, they have a Gaelic motto. It's Kiat Mila Falcha. It means like land of 100,000 welcomes. And yet, you know, when I remember being a kid and growing up in the neighborhood, and you didn't know who your neighbors were. Maybe you knew who your immediate neighbors were, but you didn't know who your further neighbors were. But as a kid, and you're riding your bicycle along with your friends on a hot day, and you feel thirsty, or you feel like you want to have a little bit of a snack or got a sweet tooth, all you'd have to do is just walk up somebody's stairs and just knock on the door and say, "Hey, I want a popsicle." You know, or an ice lolly or whatever it is where you come from.
You can't do that anymore.
And a popsicle stand. No, man. Oh, dude. Moms would be like, "Oh my God,
Yes.
you opened the door to my little baby." Oh. Right?
But you get
It's a total
fed,
different
right?
thing, you know?
I miss
I'd be
the
scared
simpleness.
to do it. I'd be scared to do it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this is what we are losing, and from these tiny occurrences, especially like the ones you mentioned in your book, you realize that there's still hope for people. There's still hope for us. And, you know, like in my situation, I kind of regret that I cannot find them. I cannot thank them now. Is there anything that you regret now that you look at the book to finish, what would you do? Anything differently or what?
Well, like I said earlier, I would say that again because that actually is my strongest regret for the book. Well, I would have done it faster. I would have accelerated the tempo, not done it over a period of 8 years, but done it over a period of 3 years. I would have gone down and continued my journey more rapidly. So I did it in stages. I do one day and come back, live my life, do another day later. I would do it faster. But that is what it is. I don't really regret that deeply. That's just kind of like technical regret. I do regret that I didn't arrange interactions with people. That, for example, I could have arranged to meet more people in the areas. Like I arranged to meet a few people along the way, but I should have thought, wow, there's a community in called Tai Mali, and is there anything I can do to connect with this community in Tai Mali, and then maybe look in the Taipei Times or something, find an article about an artist who lives in Tai Mali, maybe send him an email and try to hook up with him and maybe try to make connections along the way. So I was just walking through the landscape like a lone cowboy on his horse, basically, just moving through the landscape. And I didn't.
Well, you know what, John? I think that, writing your book and being able to share your experiences and that would be that's a very personal experience. So if you haven't written a book, then nobody's going to know that about you unless they talk to you, right? So has this kind of opened you up and made some new allegiances or some new fans that have really kind of changed your social network a little bit better? So that if you were to do that again in the future, maybe you got some new faces or something like that, or like they read your book and they're like, hey, you missed that. That was my grandma's house was up on that mountain. Yeah. You should have went there. Next time you can.
Well, it's interesting. The book just came out at the end of April, so basically May. So May, June, July. It's only been 3 months, less than 3 months. So it's hard to say how it's going to snowball. I'd say the people that I've hooked up with as a result of the book so far are other what I call Thai walkers. Taiwan walkers, not hikers. Hiking's one thing. Hiking's great. There's lots of amazing hikes in Taiwan. But the walkers are people that walk through the roads, through the landscapes, through the farms, through the cities, like Kane and Kung Fu, basically sort of walking through and checking it out. I met a lot of people like that. And they're like, hey, I'm doing a walk around Taiwan too. Really? Yeah, I want to get your book. Or, I'd always planned to do a walk around Taiwan, but I hadn't done it. So I met a lot of people like that. I met one guy who said, well, I drive high-performance sports cars from Taipei to Alishan and back, and it takes me 6 hours. But you walked around Taiwan. That's so different, isn't it?
I'm going to disagree with you on something. And you said you wish you'd have written the book faster, and this book. And I mentioned a little bit before, but no matter how many times you walk through some place, and no matter how many times, if you're willing to look for something that was unforeseen on your first journey, that's a new chapter.
That's right.
And sometimes by taking your time, because the Taiwanese like to say "man man lai."
Yeah.
Even Chinese medicine, you have to let it boil to get the flavor out. So you got this round, your first round. So I'm looking for the second round.
Yeah, it's coming.
Well, hey, in regards to that, we were talking a bit earlier about, like I said before, about some advice in writing the book. All right, people make a lot of excuses in this world. All right, now you are a man, sir, who actually hit the pavement with your 2 feet in a heartbeat, and you got out there. So what do you have to say to these people who are making excuses? You said it took you 8 years in order to do your roundabout, right?
Yeah, 83 days over a period of 8 years.
So is it like weekends that you're getting out there?
Like
are you
that,
coming
exactly.
back, going out and coming back the same day? Are you sleeping over somewhere? Well, how are you doing it to avoid these challenges that people are putting in place as roadblocks?
Well, when I was close to Taipei, I could do a day trip. I could walk from Chenshuiwan to Baisawan.
So, like, how many kilometers would you say that is?
The total distance?
No, just in a day.
Yeah.
I'd say I averaged about, some of the days were shorter because I do a 2-day period and I have to come back early.
And the weather too.
But I'd say average day of walking was about 20K. So I didn't push myself too hard.
That sounds like a light walk. No, because you dealing with, seashore, and rocks and falling rocks, and probably had to deal with, the snakes that you didn't mention. And your wife was smart. She only went with you one day, huh?
Yeah, one day. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
She was like, did she think you were crazy or what?
Well, she thought it was when I first suggested the idea, she thought it was a crazy idea. She didn't think I'd actually do it. Most people I talked to and I said I'm going to do it, they were like, yeah, sure. Most people didn't think I was actually going to do it. And when I told people I was writing a book, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, we all are.
Good luck. Yeah, no, I was sure I was going to do it. So I wasn't sure where their response was coming from because I was positive I was going to finish this. So I would say to people who want to write a book, just make sure, it relates also to what you said about the second round. What's in your heart is the most important magnet that sort of orients you and directs you in the world, in life. Make sure that in your heart, you are sure that you want to write a book. You're not just talking about it because it's cool. Do you want to write a book? Really? Then be totally certain that you're actually going to do it. Say, I am going to write this book. Tell yourself that. And other things will tend to just align themselves around that.
At least this time line up.
So is your wife kind of jealous now that she didn't get out there with you after all now?
No, she show your relatives now. You see what my husband did?
Not really, because I'm still giving her, now she has to help me sell the book.
Okay. But how do you publish it by yourself? Do you just go to a print shop and you're just like, hey, here's my PDF file. I want you to do it up for me and get it going, or what?
Well, the story of how this book was published is very complex because I dealt with a publishing company and one person in the publishing company wanted to support the project and someone else in the publishing company didn't. So I settled on a compromise.
hard.
So yeah, well, it was unexpected and people, when they're getting something done, they have to know about the publishing world. They should ask a lot of questions. They should think about what are all the steps, and they should really do your homework before you. I'd say writing a book like this is like building a cabin. And before you build the cabin, you have to think of the location, water, the foundation, are there dangerous trees, like really situate it properly. Think about that properly. But basically what you need is a good PDF file, and then you can find a printer. So to get that good PDF file, you need a professional story editor. You need a professional copy editor. You need a professional layout person who can help you with the graphics and stuff. You've got to make sure it's good. And you can, but in Taiwan, in Taipei, there's a lot of freelancers that don't get enough work. So if you just dig deep, find people that have written books before, ask around, find the very good freelancers, make a reasonable deal with the very good freelancers, you can do it. You can do the whole thing yourself.
Cool.
It's possible. And anyone who wants to, the fan page or the Facebook page for this is Taiwanese.feet. That's simple. You want to send me a message and ask me, or I'm John Groot on Facebook. You may know me. You may be my Facebook friend. If you're not, feel free to add me. If you have any questions about this, I may not be able to answer them directly, but I can hook you up with someone who can help you, the right freelancers or people to give you advice on how to get it done.
He is Groot.
He's got lots of branches that can help you out.
That's cool.
We are Groot.
Well, we quite underdid that. Well, if you have any other questions, we can keep moving or.
You know what? I really do want to say that I really appreciate your time here and sharing your experience with us. I know I've definitely learned a lot tonight, and seeing your book, I really see that our friendship over the years is just going to grow even further because I see so much more insight into who you are as a human being and your thought process and why you're doing things. And I really like to discuss people that are underrepresented, and give them a chance to tell their story. And so I hope that this podcast today, this YouTube video, definitely inspires some people out there because I definitely feel inspired by your story.
Great. Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed talking with you guys. And it's a great way to get to know you better and to meet you finally in person.
Yeah. I've known you. I've been communicating with each other for the past 5 years. And we'll put the information about Hackstrong in the show notes. And,
absolutely. Thank you.
Once again, I also thank you for joining us here today in this small room. But before we go, what are some of the impressions you hope people who have read your book or who are planning to read the book leave with? What type of things you hope they can leave in their mind after reading this book? Maybe not even about Taiwan, about personal growth.
Well, I'd say it is, there's nothing, you said there is still hope.
Yes.
And it's interesting. There is still hope. For me, I would say there's always hope and being positive. And that's what Hackstrong is about. Positivity. Even this guy lost an eye, snapped a femur. Who knows what else happened to him? I don't know. But he's back. He's smiling. He's full of love. And Bradley Winterton, the Taipei Times critic who panned my book for being too positive. He said the big flaw in John Groot's book is he's too positive about Taiwanese people. That's sort of a, he's a good reviewer, but he missed that completely. He missed that positivity that Taiwan can engender in people. So I'd say don't despair. Don't give up to desperation. Don't let your life be destroyed by the existence of Donald Trump or the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Be positive, keep on walking, and do your best, and have a positive heart.
Well, positivity is a drug I would like to take. Kyle, take us out of here.
All right, folks, it sounds like it's about time for you to put the fork down, strap on a pair of shoes, and hit the pavement. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Ciao, ciao. 再见.
I am Groot.